Good morning, Henrik.
Hi, good morning, Spencer.
How are you today?
Yeah, all good. In the quiet studio. No one is here.
Yeah. Good morning, Henrik.
Hi, good morning, Spencer.
So that was the YouTube live stream in the background. I just turned that off. Let's see here. So Henrik, just to kind of prep you, today we're going to try and break up into groups. And so I'm hoping you can of assistance to the other workshop members in helping them through their process.
Yeah, sure.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll give it another 10 minutes or so just to let people get on.
Yeah, sure.
Heinrich, have you joined the Discord channel yet?
No, actually, I didn't find the link. So can you share to me again?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Give me one second, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Evan.
Hi, Spencer. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yeah, I can hear you. How are you?
Great. Good morning.
Evan, this is Henrik. He's helping us. He's a student at XJTLU. He's one of our TAs on the workshop.
Great.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Henrik.
Hi.
You too.
So, Evan, we're just going to wait for a few more minutes just to let people.
Yeah,
join.
that's fine. How's it been going?
And it's good. Yeah, just to fill you in. So last time we had a really nice discussion between myself and Henrik's professor Juan Carlos, who's been also working on similar topics of style transfer, machine learning style transfer, and I gave a presentation, kind of just an overview and a background set of information for everyone to kind of get up to speed. And over these last kind of day and a half, people have been working on the style transfer process, and then also the embellishment or the kind of contextualization and scaling of the problem. And so today we're going to primarily be doing doing small group kind of working sessions. And so having you here to kind of help with those will be wonderful.
Okay, great. Is it similar to what you were doing with the AI stuff that I had seen previously?
Yeah, exactly
Okay.
the same stuff. Yeah. I'm actually running a studio concurrently with this workshop here at Gehekai at Wenzhou Kane, and
Right.
their studio is focused on mechanization. So I think I told you this, but just for everyone else's background, we started with the Futurist Manifesto, and we've gone down through that canonized lineage of architectural fetishization of mechanization, and so now we're kind of future, outlook, vision finding, or vision exploring that the future architectural mechanization. And so all the students that are here in the physical space, that's their focus, is kind of future visioning for architectural mechanization. So all of their work will be more focused in that way. And the other students from or other workshop members from around the world, their work is going to be much more varied. So
Okay.
we'll give it another 2 minutes. We might have a low participation today. We'll see. Who knows? It may just be a time zone thing. I know somebody from New York emailed me yesterday and said, "Hey, I'm online for the live stream. It said Monday morning." They totally missed it by a day, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's killer. It's brutal, the time difference.
yeah.
I'm just waking up myself, actually.
Oh, good. Juan Carlos is here as well. This is good. Oh. Test the transcription. Yep, transcription's working. I think that helps some of our Chinese students who might not be able to audibly pick up the words very well, but can read it more quickly. Also, for those of you who speak Chinese and need help with that, we do have people, Heinrich, I believe you speak Chinese, correct?
Actually, my mother language is Cantonese, but I have learned Mandarin, so yeah.
Okay.
So it's like my second language.
I see, I see. Well, and then we also have Shannon, who's a TA, and she should be joining us as well. And she's
That's
fluent
great.
in Chinese. So if people have problems, we can defer to them. And we should have Wang Xin joining us, an architect from Shanghai, and she should be able to help us with that, with Chinese translation if necessary. Juan Carlos, good to see you this morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Yeah. So we're kind of stalling here just to give people time to join. I'm curious, Juan Carlos, I've seen some of your posts about composing and music. Can you tell me just a little bit about that while we're waiting, if you don't mind?
About composing music?
I mean, I think you're a musician, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I look forward to hearing more of your work sometime.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure.
Okay. So
we did some interesting works also about that topic with the students, about translating music into audio visuals, and Henry knows.
Yes. Yeah.
Really fun stuff. Well, I don't know that we're going to get any more. Maybe people will join a little later. Maybe we should go ahead and get started. People can watch the live stream or the recording later, I guess, if they want to. So let me share my screen. I'm going to just kind of dive in by showing what I've done. I just tried to do exactly what I asked everyone else to do for the workshop. And so I'll share my process in hopes that we can get other people to be sharing with their work, and then we can have discussion about the work. This doesn't have to be the entire, 2.5, 3 hours or whatever it is, whatever's helpful for the workshop participants. So let me just share what I was able to get through quickly. And then from there, we'll ask that the workshop participants share their work as well. Okay. So let me just share my process here. So here's I just chose a number of images to kind of begin working with. And let's see if I can get. Hold on 1 second. Okay. You can see my screen, you can see me okay, everything's good?
All good.
Okay, good. Okay, so these are my kind of images that I chose to start with. And again, like I said, the studio that I'm working in right now, their focus is kind of the fetishization of mechanization within architecture. And so I tried to kind of think about that and think about different images that might lend themselves to this kind of thing. So I started with maybe this image here. It's just a simple kind of complex engine of some sort. And from there, I moved on and I thought about quantum computing. So I looked at this, I looked at this. This one here reminded me of an arm. And so as you can see from my deep art IO kind of history here, you can see that process. And so here I was just trying to use a simple canvas to kind of superimpose this complex mechanization onto kind of a simple object. I wasn't so happy with the results there. Moved on to the hand. I didn't really feel like that was going anywhere. But then I had this idea of using brilliant architecture as a kind of a canvas to build on top of. And there we start to get something a little more interesting. And I can show you that result in a minute here. And then I found that this quantum computer, along with the orange, also was very fruitful, pun intended. And then this was also quite nice with using Instant City by Arcogram. And then I moved on and was using Steel Cloud by Asymptote, and that actually was very fruitful as well. The Hadron Collider with the orange was somewhat fruitful, but not exactly what I was hoping for. Let's see here. Oh yeah. Then I was interested in, let's see here. Let's see if I can find it here. Oh yeah. At some point I did this piece using Steel Cloud and this dump truck scene. I'm not so interested in the dump truck. I was hoping that the dump truck would take on more of the Steel Cloud kind of style or language. Let me see if I can find it here. Or did I move Steel Cloud? Maybe I didn't get Steel Cloud downloaded. Well, you've seen it. Here's that Steel Cloud original image. And I was hoping that the dump truck would take on more of the properties of the Steel Cloud, which it didn't. But one thing that I thought was quite interesting was that within the dump truck scene, this portion here, I felt like was quite promising here, where it's almost like the ether or the air or what have you gained some sort of tectonic. And I thought that tectonic was quite nice. And so with that tectonic, I started to try using that same scene, but without the dump truck. So here you can see the different versions of the dump truck scene that I used. I tried this one first, which was a content-aware replace from Photoshop, and the results were okay. But then what I found that worked better was just cropping out the dump truck altogether, and I ended up with better results, as you can see from this image here. I thought that the results of that were quite interesting, and that was more along the lines of what I was maybe looking for and interested in. And again, the wonderful thing about this is that it's all about our interpretation based on the original image. So we have kind of a black box in the middle, but we have an initial image selection that we can be fully engaged with, and then again after the images has been produced, we then can re-engage and start to respond to it and interact with it, which I did, where I took this original image, found what I liked about it, and then tried iteratively to get the results that I found to be interesting about that particular piece. Okay, coming back in. So here's my other attempts with that dump truck scene. And then I was interested in, let's see if I can bring it up here. Oh yeah, so here we go. So here is one of those Arcogram remakes. This is the original one using the quantum computer. And I felt like it was interesting, but I didn't think that the singular language was all that helpful. I felt like that the singular language made it so that we end up with kind of this homogeneity that's not useful or helpful in really understanding what could become a reality in some way, in some form, even if it's a virtual reality. So I felt like that maybe I could use the texturing on these, what was balloons, but now who knows what they are. But I didn't really feel like I could use both the texturing below and above the same way. Maybe I could. I think this could be quite a compelling project to pursue by itself, but I wanted to try and think about how I could use the style transfer in a more directed way. So so with that process, I tried different versions. Here's another version with some other results from the Arcogram image. But then what I figured was that if I go back to that original Arcogram image and try and pull out some components that I thought could be useful, we have kind of four main components of the image. We have the background sky, we have these balloons, we have the tent, and then we have these buildings or these objects below. I guess they're probably mostly buildings. And so I tried to just quickly recreate that within Rhino. And so so that's what I did. I just quickly recreated that in Rhino, and then I brought that in as an image here, and I tried to mimic the coloring from the original Arcogram image as well. There you can see there's that piece, and I've used that again here, and then I brought that in as something to use. Oops. Something to use in the style transfer process. And I also did a discolored one just to see what the results would be. And from that, we get some of these results, which are quite nice. This one is the asymptote still cloud image. And then here's another asymptote still cloud, but using the different colors. The two colors give us different results there. And I have this one here, which is using one of the, I believe it's the machine over at the top of the Arcogram kind of building piece. So I didn't feel like, oh yeah, and then here's that orange that's been using the steel cloud as a background. This one actually reminded me of Ledoux and kind of his very sculptural paper architecture buildings that he worked on, centuries ago, and I felt like this was kind of an interesting one. So each one of these images in their own right has some kind of validity, and then it's just a matter of deciding for yourself what you find interesting or helpful, or what strikes you as something that's worth pursuing as a way forward. And so the next process is then, like I said, context and scale. And so I was able to produce two quick images dealing with context and scale, and I can go into those images a little more deeply in terms of what I did. But just to kind of give you a sense, so this is based on that original Arcogram plus quantum computer image, and then what I did is I took the original Arcogram image. Oh yeah, I took the original Arcogram image. Let's see, let me pull up Photoshop here. Let's see here. I'm gonna just group these real quick so that I don't lose my place, and that way I can show you. So here is original Arcogram. That's the original Arcogram image that I found on DZine, and which, by the way, I've documented all of my source images here, just so that I have those as a reference for myself, and also if I put these images out there, I want people to know where I got my original content from. And then I've just gone ahead and quickly kind of masked out a few little things to kind of make this image merge. So this takes the Arcogram image and embellishes on it. And then from there, I was able to do the same thing with the quantum computing problem or drawing. And so this is kind of the output that I get from that. And then from there, I said, okay, now let's take the different parts, because what I've done is I've created somewhat of a kit of parts here with all these images here. We have basically just a kit of parts that I can start to work with together. And so from there, I started to develop this image, which let me show you the image first. Here's the image, the output image that I was able to kind of arrive at. And I'm using several of the different components that I explored to come up with this solution or this potentiality. And so then if I go back to the Photoshop here, we have a number of layers that I've kind of superimposed. These original Arcogram layers are no longer useful except for as a guide. I've got myself a blue sky, similar to the Arcogram blue sky, but not the same. But it's actually taken from this image on top here, that one. Okay, so I've separated my thing into different groups. I've got these boxes, and you can see one there, and looks like I'm maybe not using any of the other boxes. I had another box there, but I took it out due to the fact that I felt like there was maybe too much going on in the image. And then I have one of the oranges there. This is the quantum orange there that I've got inside. And I have the still cloud orange here as a kind of a foreground element. And then behind that, just some background. And then here I've got people for scale. And it's really hard to notice those people. When you look at the JPEG, you're not really kind of thinking about those people. But having those people in there really contextualizes this in terms of what size of a building are we looking at? What size of what's the scale of this scene? And I think that's really important as a designer to state that, to make that claim, and to kind of be clear about the kind of scale that you're thinking that this object has the potential of being. Because again, the computer is not going to give you a scale. It's your opportunity to give a scale. And this may be a little bit cheesy. Maybe there's better ways I can work the people into the project, but for a quick kind of an exercise, I probably spent 3, 4, 5 hours on this totally. I think that it does the job. Okay, not great, but okay. And then let's keep going here. So we got that, and then underneath we have kind of this layering of the quantum background there. And here we have, I think, the mechanical arcogram, or the engine arcogram inside there. Let's see. And then underneath that we have the quantum arcogram. So that was my process, just working quickly yesterday. I think it'd be great to see other people's work. Any questions on my process before we dive into that? Any questions? No? Okay. Well, then, if it's okay, I think it'd be great to have people share with us their work. If we have four tutors here, and so maybe we can break up into small groups. I think we have this ability to do groups. We should. Maybe not. Well, I'm not seeing it here. I think it might be a setting that I would have had to turn on. I thought that we had it, but I guess we don't. It's okay. who would like to share their work first? Abai, you were sharing some of your work on Discord. Do you want to share with us your process a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I'll share it with you. Should I share my screen?
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. It says the host has disabled participation screen sharing. So you'll have to give me the access. I'm sorry, I cannot share my screen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me pull up that folder you sent us in the group,
Yeah, sure.
and then you can walk us through your work. Let's see here. Okay. Are you seeing my screen there, Abai?
Yes.
Okay, so where do you want me to go? What do you want us to see?
Yeah, we can go to the main folder, and there are, I guess,
Which one?
the renders folder.
Oh, renderings.
Yeah. So I've shared links to the files that I have rendered.
Oh, I'm afraid this is a computer specific thing because it sees your cookies or your cache on your computer, and then it's giving us that. Darn it. I think that there's a way. I think you can say share with a friend or something like that.
I'll check in on my computer. One second.
Hmm. So just as a background here, this is the work Heinrich's been doing as a precursor to this workshop. He was kind of working on this space and trying to create
I wanted to create
environment.
kind of a distorting environment.
Say that again.
I wanted to create a kind of a distorting environment, and from which we could do our style transfers from it when we are doing the, what do you say, videos and renderings to it. But since we were doing the style transfers from images, so I've made some examples from the same image. I've chosen styles and I've given and I've uploaded it on the deep dreaming and the deep art IO. Is it possible for me to share my screen so I can show it to you?
Yeah, let me try and make sure you can share your screen here. View transcript. Oh, there we go. That should work now. So let me just. Aha, great.
Yeah, thank you. So I've chosen this same image over here, and I've chosen a style for which I wanted to style transfer the image, and I've gotten. I'll just share it. So what I thought was the computer, the AI, would refer this hole or cavity with this, but what the AI did was it gave it to the whole space. So is there any way where we can change the specifics which the AI can designate this a similar spot to the my artwork?
Carlos, what are your thoughts on this image here? Evan, Henrik, yeah, go back Abai.
Yeah. So these are.
Anyone have any thoughts? Let's get kind of work.
Can you go back to the constructed the three set? Okay, so the three sets are on the left that you created, right?
Yeah.
All the ones on the left, yes.
So you combine, for instance. Yeah. Okay.
1 and 2 on the right. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Combine these.
So I think that one thing that you.
Evan, he's working with this
in my
singular space. Sorry.
Yeah. So was that something that was across everybody's brief? They had to use one image, or is that something that you did on your own? Because I think that there was something interesting that you did by choosing. Yeah, I think that was very successful in some ways, because you can start to see exactly how the algorithm is starting to combine that one singular image with the other pieces.
Yeah.
Right. So as a set, it's almost even in a way more interesting, because you can start to unpack how it's sort of mapping this geometry with or combining these other geometries. Like I love, for instance, this kind of, some of them I think are much more successful than others.
Yeah.
And it would be curious to kind of unpack why, for instance, certain textures are lending themselves to that process, right? And whereas other ones don't. Like, for example, the glitch art one for me is less successful because it almost just looks like a Photoshop overlay, right?
Yes, definitely.
When you have the glitch art, right? And so that's really interesting, because all of a sudden you can start to say, okay, there's something about, this like very, broken or distorted or compartmentalized image that is not really mapping to the geometry as well as this kind of picture above. I really like if you scroll up, Spencer.
Yeah.
Can you go up? Yeah, this one I think is really successful, where you, the third one.
Sorry, this one? Yeah.
The third one? This one, yeah. The one on the bottom, there. So, yeah, and you can see it's almost as if, you know, the geometry is being embedded into the image, but also like the way in which the computer is sort of using those striations on the right image is now, it has to kind of figure out how to build that into an image all the way through. And it's like, it's kind of, it's interesting for that. I don't know, like, I don't exactly know why it's interesting, but I like it. I think it's like an interesting graphic. And I think that one thing that you might start to do is treat it almost like a scientist and say, okay, so I have certain experiments, right, that are working for whatever reason, and certain images that are not working, and you are the designer, so you get to pick and choose exactly why and how you make those decisions. But what I would encourage you to do is really try to understand how that algorithm is putting these two images together and push it to see how weird and sort of alienating these images can possibly become, right? And I think that's what I would suggest. But I think, you know, it's up to you and how you move forward. But I think that some of these images are successful and some aren't. And I think that trying to understand why might do you some good.
Yeah, sure. What I wanted to learn from this was, if I use a single image and I use different styles on it, I just wanted to learn how the AI would react to it. So yesterday when I and Steven, we both connected on Discord, I came to know that there was almost nothing on my foreground of the image which I have chosen. So I had to work on the foreground more, or I had to choose some other either aerial perspective of the same model and try and work with that. Can share what I've done. Just a second. So after we both talked, I tried to make another experiment out of it. I created one more model. I have to work on the materials and everything. But I was trying that if I could get more details into the model, and I made an image out of it. And then I used it for style transferring. Then I get a better output from it. So from the first scene, I think maybe I was getting nothing out of it because it was just a single material and only one object which I had to actually look into. So this was the only thing which was opening up. It was a bit centric. So what I did was I made another model in the same this, and I guess I'll try doing my experiments in this today and see what style transfers can we do and how the algorithm will react to it, or how it actually calculates.
So I think those are great. Those are great studies. And one thing that I might also encourage you to look into is maybe how you can also take those images and start to extract 3D models from them without just kind of modeling them by yourself. Like, I wonder if there's a way to create a kind of displacement map from an image, right? So all of a sudden the whole thing is being done through the computer, right? I think that this is an interesting experiment, not so much when you take it and then 3D model it, but if you really just keep it within this process, like maybe find some kind of automated way of generating this kind of geometry and then putting it back into that feedback loop, right? And then turning up the volume to see how crazy and weird it can actually get, right? Like I think that it's good that you've done this, but I also think that it's more interesting when you just stick to the tools. Yeah?
Evan, so I think that actually brings up a good point. What happens when you take a style transfer image and then try to turn it into a photogrammetry 3D model? That's the question. We haven't done that yet, but I think that's where there's some fruitful opportunities, maybe. Like, for example, what if Abai, what if you take several views of of your 3D model, your original 3D model, and then you apply style transfer to that, to those several images using the exact same style or the exact same texturing, and then stitch those images together to create, or no, don't stitch them together, but make sure there's overlap so that the computer can find that overlap.
Got it.
And then use the photogrammetry process to let the computer create a scene out of your style transfer work.
Yeah,
and then
got it.
from there, you get 3D models directly out of the computer, and they'll be rough. They'll be like really grainy. And Evan, I don't know that there's an exact way to get clean geometry out of an image well right now. I think there are technologies that allow that to happen, but none that are well developed. But kind of a backdoor to that, I think, is the photogrammetry, where you won't get clean models, but you will get models, and they'll be textured. And so that's an approach.
Yeah, sure. I'll try it
And
see how it works out.
another suggestion would also be to work like planimetrically, in that you could also, because all of your images are more or less like perspectives, but you could also start to construct images from like an Albers painting or something, right? Like 2D images, start to combine those, and then use those as a kind of framework, like plan section, cross section, to create other kinds of, almost like a set of construction documents or something. So that could be also an interesting experiment. Or you look at light, the way that light is being, remapped onto these surfaces, and that becomes an experiment, right? So I think it's working. I think that you should just keep going with it. But I also think that try and be a little bit more scientific and more rigorous with now what you deem to be successful, right? Yeah. So next time that we meet, you can tell us exactly like, okay, so I got to this stage in the process, and then I decided to work forward, going through whatever, however you want to go forward.
Yeah, sure. I'll try to.
But I think you should try and articulate it.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. It's great work, though. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
Carlos, you have anything to add?
Yeah. Could you go back to your images, please?
Yeah, sure.
Just a few comments. For me, the more successful clearly is this one, the one in the center, the white one. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So at least from our experience, what we did, it seems to me, I agree with Evan that you should be more scientific. I mean, the exploration should take you to clearing the process in order that you can manage better the algorithm, right? Yeah. So at least we define the two images, the ones that you are working with, into two different, very clear categories. One is providing like the geometries or the structure, right? And is working in a scale. And the other one is kind of providing a texture, correct? So the combination of both of them is then producing this kind of result. From this sequence that I think is very interesting, because it's really allowing you to get more in contact and to better know the potential from this algorithm. You can see that, for example, the geometry, the cover, in your 3D model, you did a big effort into modeling this sort of, let me say, avenue or like this path, right? But in most of the images that coming from style transfer, this is completely lost, right? Because what is dominating is the central circle, right? So it's a contrast with the dark and the light color. And that one that is more, let me say, weak in terms of contrast, then gets completely lost. At least it's happening in the central image, the one with the white ribbon, right?
Yes, definitely.
But you can see that when the texture is more blurry, for example, the red and black white color, then in that case, you have the opportunity that the what is more soft, right? So this perspective then at the end is coming there, right? So this is quite interesting. So I think this should be part of your process and how you are thinking. is about intensity, right? So first thing to have a clear distinction among what is making the geometry, the space, the structure, let's say the space structure, and the other one that is providing the texture, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you will see that according to the intensity of both, then you have very different results, right? And then depends on what you are looking for, correct? Because also the things that was the Spencer was showing before, I think was very clear. He was using this orange, right? So it's a quite strong contrast between the background and the figure, right? This one with a green texture, I think is interesting, right? Because it's sort of in between status, because it's like putting together. So you can recognize again the intensity of the central circle, right?
Yes.
But you have anyway something of that one that is happening in the second, third, or in this perspective frame, right? For sure, the less successful image is this one, the one with
definitely the glitch one doesn't work out well.
Yeah. And I find, again, interesting the one below, because, I mean, this should be, I quite like how the algorithm is reshaping the geometry of the texture according to the other one. So you can, these two circles, right, for me are really clear. That is really, really interesting. I found it very promising, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe Spencer has more experience on this, but I guess that there's a reason that, like even the texture has a sort of circular or elliptic base. So perhaps for that reason, it's easy to be adapted to the geometry, because in a way they are aligned in the terms of their essence, you know, the main way that the texture is designed. I don't know if the texture was, for example, more geometric, like 90 degrees squares or polygons, probably will not work as well as it is working here. But
right, you're exactly right, Juan Carlos. You know, if you can try and find some correlation between the two images, oftentimes that will help the computer to kind of merge them and kind of mold them together, fuse them, if you will. And you're right, this geometry lends itself because they're similar geometries.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always work. Sometimes you imagine that the computer will take and use something in a certain way, and it doesn't. And that's okay, but you just kind of learn from that. And you expressed that in some of your images. You said you thought that it would take the circle and apply it, and it didn't.
Yes, definitely. The first one, I thought maybe the opening would take in this geometry, but what it did was it gave it to the entire space.
Yeah.
It showed the opening, it showed the perspective, but it took the texture into the dark areas. Yeah.
So I find it really fascinating, because the set of images that you got, I think is very meaningful, because it's really allowing you to know the algorithm, right? So perhaps what you need to understand better is which kind of objective you have, because they are very different, right? I said, personally, I like the one with a white texture, but also the last one, but they're very different, because in this image, you have anyway a sort of hierarchy. So the idea of the space anyway is there, right? So it's clearly a texture that is working over a main geometry with a higher hierarchy. Instead, the last image is a sort of fusion, right? So you completely lost that hierarchy. Is a continuum. It's like the same thing, you know? Both are very promising, but in the same time are very different. So perhaps this should be part of your process and your results, you know?
Yes, yeah, definitely. So we saw Henrik's presentation last time, and we saw like how we increase the iterations and everything. He got some different algorithms via the deep dreaming generator.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do was I would choose only one image and I would choose different styles on it. And I wanted to learn how the algorithm would work on it. That is why I tried the same image on different styles, basically.
So can I add something here?
Yeah, sure.
I think that you don't have to take everything that the computer gives you. You can be selective. So for example, very last image, if you'll click on that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
No, the very first image, sorry, first image.
First image. Yeah.
At the top, the one at the top. The one at the top, yeah, there you go. Yeah. So I think that the interior space is not very successful, but I do think the exterior space beyond is getting somewhere. And there's a lot of ways you can approach it. For example, the space you're really interested in is the interior space, and the background is helpful for creating the mood and the feeling and the whole environment, but maybe secondary to the interior space. And so I feel like you could simply crop out that oculus hole, and then use that as a texture background to produce this background image in a kind of filmic way, a cinematic way, where you're not really trying to model everything, but you can use this texture as a backdrop in and of itself. The other thing is, when we spoke last night on the Discord, we were talking about, I mentioned this idea, and Evan mentioned it as well, using these images as textures within the model. And you can use bump mapping or displacement mapping as a process to start to create geometries directly from the imagery. And so what I was thinking was that you take some of these more compelling images and start to apply them as kind of three-dimensional languages to the background buildings individually, so that you get a varied urban type experience or feel directly from the style transfer process. And with that, you can start to use ones that maybe are less successful, because the style transfer process isn't about creating the holistic image, but it's actually about working with the computer, taking parts here, taking parts there that are useful, and then compositing them for the results that are more interesting or compelling to you.
Yeah.
Like, for example, this sand one, or the ocean one right there, number 3, that one I could see being an interesting facade as a background facade, not necessarily like your main building that you're interested in expressing, but just as a background thing. You know, you could just stretch that up vertically as a facade, and it could be quite interesting.
Yes, definitely.
And I would say more interesting than just the texture. Although I will say, like Evan said, with the pixel art, or the glitch art, you can tell when it's a style being applied to an environment, and you can also tell when it's a fusion that's more direct, more happening more cohesively. And so in the example of the glitch art or of the waves, we're seeing the style being applied. And I think that all of us feel, I think it's been expressed, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's just less compelling when you have this style that's applied to an image, as opposed to a fusion that happens more cohesively.
I think the two that worked out well was the first one, and the one which Juan Carlos said, like, and Evan said, that this is what we intend to make out of it.
May I add something, please?
Yeah, sure.
Please.
Yeah, I totally agree with the previous comments that if you are focusing on the interior space and maybe the output image, you can consider them not just at that space, but you can consider them at different scales. So maybe some are just facade and some can be used on certain wall, because actually now you have like 5 or 6 faces you can see. So maybe you can think of like how Spencer presented in the earlier this morning, how he was trying to divide the whole scenes into different walls or different faces. I think that's one thing. And then another thing is more about how to extract this into a 3-dimensional model. So I believe the mapping and the bumping is one of the way, but there is also other way. For example, if you know the Grasshopper, there's a function called image sampler. So actually you can extract the contrast of the image. So with that, you cannot you can you can build a model according to height, similar to bumping, but also you can do much more thing because now you got the data. So you're getting the the numbers from this image instead of just the 3D texture. So you can be more creative after you got the numbers.
Yeah, sure.
And there is one more thing which is might be less useful, but you can get a more discrete result, which is you can do one more layer, which is you put the image into Illustrator first and try to do an image trace. Yeah, so you can get some really delicate lines first, and then you can further proceed in the 3D modeling program. So I think it's
sure. I'll
try if you want to translate into
definitely.
a 3D model.
Definitely.
Henrik, have you had success with the Illustrator live trace?
To be honest, it's not completely fine because the image itself is pixel. So when it is transferred into an image trace, it will got many gaps in between. But this is one way that if we want to have delicate 2D lines, then it should be the way to do it.
Okay, does someone else want to share?
Hi, Spencer. Hello.
Hi, Wing. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Hi guys.
This is Wing Xin. We introduced you last time, but Wang, just for introductions again, Wang Xin has an office in Shanghai and also is teaching at an architecture school in Hainan. So welcome, Wang Xin.
Hi guys. Can I see the last screen you just have on? Because I have some ideas towards some of the work. The last project you were just showing.
Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I'll share.
Yeah, I just have some my point of view towards some of the works to share.
Can you see the screen now?
Oh yeah, I see it now. Yeah, because I was looking at the projects and listening to all the crits. Personally, I'm very much interested in the one with the structure grid. I think it's C8TTQHHZ.
Okay, yeah. Is this
go down? No, go down. The third one, I think. Go down. Is it the internet lagging?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Anyways, okay, my screen is not changing yet, but what I want to share is I'm very interested in your project that you're trying to use two very different geometry systems to interact with each other and get AI result, right? Like as a new result. So in that sense, I think the first one where actually the two original structures too similar. If you look at the result, actually the I don't know what's the name of that. Looks like a vegetable or a worm. I think that one it purely become a pattern that just attach into the space, into the interior, right? So to me, I think the second one, the third one is much more successful, especially the third one. The original one, the one on the right, is pure structural, right? Pure logical and pure regional and very structural functioning working. And then the second one you are putting in is a totally like based on space, based on light, based on interior effect. So when these two totally like different driven force come together, I think that comes an interesting result. So in that sense, for example, the one I'm seeing at Yes, so in that sense, personally, I feel the second one is more, yeah, this one, maybe the scoring is much later than when I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one, the one with these sea worms, I think this one is the less interesting to me. What I feel very interesting is the second one, for example, and especially the third one. And the
Yes,
reason
definitely.
the reason as I noted, I think is because the behind the deep structure that driven the middle image and the right image are very different. So when this conflict happen, then AI will give you some useful and suggestive results for you to start something new. Like because actually, me and Spencer, we were working on something like tackling some problem with parametric structure system just before. And what we were facing was we have a very, let's say, reasonable and parametric structure system, but then the site is totally another structure system driven result. So basically what I'm saying is when me and Spencer, when we design something, is very mathematical based, but then the context as us was a very, let's say, program driven result. So something taking me a lot of time to work is to fitting the parametric structure into the very program driven base. And that was quite difficult actually. So in that sense, if we have this technique, then we can quickly get like tons of results, like something reasonable together, overlapping something driven by another force. So in that sense, I think the third one is very, very much potential. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Spencer.
Yep. Thank you, Wangxin. So I'd like to have other people share their work as well. So who's up? Who would like to share their work? We might get a bunch of shy people who don't want to share, which would be sad, but I hope someone else will participate. Let's see here. Kawang, K-A-W-E-N-G, Kawang. Do you have something you can share with us today?
Yes, I have something to share, but
哎，你们昨天那个微信图拼好了吗？哦。
can I share my screen?
我看一下。哦，这会比较清楚了，好像。这个是那个槟榔村，对吧？哎，你们再搜一下，三亚还有一个叫做抱前村。
Hello, can you hear? Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yep.
Can I share my screen now?
Please do. Yes, please.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
I tried to use Depart and generate some output photos. And at last, I chose this one as my style transfer photo. I think that this set of photos show an image of city, which the tubes act as a highway, and they are connecting the architecture in the city. and forming a very organic structure. And I use Rhino to simply just use Rhino and have some to build a very simple model to show my intention that I want the tubes to connect people, and the buildings in the city will be quite organic form, but I don't have many ideas about this, so I just use blocks to interpret my intention right now.
Can you share with us a similar perspective? I'd like to try and understand the style transfer image in relationship to the model better.
This is the image that I choose, the last one.
Right. So what I'm trying to say is that it would be wonderful if you'd give us kind of a forced worm's eye view perspective in the Rhino model, so we can start to see. This is the next process, is to move from the image into the whole environment, the 3D modeled environment. And so then if you can get a similar view to what you have in the style transfer, you can get that same view in Rhino and use that as a reference view. That will really help you, because you start to be able to understand what aspects and elements are important for making this environment.
According to the image I produced, I think the perspective will be quite at a low level and showing how the city is organized and everything is. I think I would like to make something that have a feeling of cyberpunk, and actually my ideas comes from the movie of Ralph that attacks internet. I don't remember it exactly, but I would like to try. I try to produce an atmosphere that is cyberpunk. I think the perspective will be like this, seeing all the troops suspending around the city.
I think that's a great intention. So how can we help you move forward?
Can I know how to construct a model that suits the atmosphere? Or because I think
Okay, so this is the hard part, I think. You know, Evan alluded to it earlier today. We want to have a seamless process from kind of initial conception all the way through to the final output. And at this point, it doesn't really exist. There are attempts, and there are people working to make 3D geometry from 2D images, but we're not there yet. You can do it with a normal image, but the challenge is that we are the designers, so we have to make the decisions. We have to make the calls as to what's important to us and what's not important to us. And so it's a very interpretive process. It's something where we have to interpret the image and say, and translate it. Say, you know, this is what I see in this image, and this is the way that I think it plays out in three-dimensional space. And I think you've done a great first step where you kind of blocked it out, you know, with just general massing. And now it's about getting into the details. And, you know, there are procedural modeling techniques. There's a lot of simple tools that can be applied here that can be useful to help you kind of flush out the details in a way that's efficient. I guess that's the word, efficient. And so, go ahead.
Can you zoom into your second image for me? Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing, like, I think that this is as good of an image as any that you should begin to look at. I think that what you've done so far is really great. It's very exciting. There was something that Juan Xing said earlier, which I thought was super interesting, which is about, you know, different applications of this AI algorithm, right? How would you, for instance, deal with something like program? And I think that at the heart of that question is essentially how the algorithm is working. So in my, what I'm going to say is not going to be much different from what I said last time, but really trying to understand like how this blurring happens is really fascinating. Like for example, on the left image, almost all of the lines, all of the line work is almost effaced, right? It's taken out. There's no more lines. And what happens is that it's starting to blend these, you know, these soft colors into these very amorphic shapes. And so I think that one thing that could be really fascinating is if you take like, if you replaced, for example, the image on the left with like a grid, right? And then you ran it through a series of tests to see how the grid is being mapped over certain images, whether they're soft, like textures, or hard. That just becomes a way for you to really quickly kind of understand and analyze how these two things are overlapping. And so if you were to do something like that, you can then create a catalog of parts, right? In which you can say, this is happening in this condition, this is happening in this condition, soft versus hard versus colorful versus monochromatic, right? And that becomes a way for you to really start to test exactly how this is working. And you can then say, actually, well, then I'm going to apply the same logic, right, to a 3D model in which you take a city plan and then you apply these kinds of different mapping strategies over it. So you can actually start to create a 3D model using the same logic as the AI algorithm. And that becomes a way of you getting around the fact that you're basically taking an image and you're going straight to model. And all I'm trying to encourage is that you try and find some sort of intermediary process that allows you to very coherently make and create space using the rubric of the AI algorithm. So like once you create, for example, like a city plan from something like, you know, mapped grids, you can then start to apply textures like I think LIDAR, and Spencer will know much more about this than I do, but like you can actually create, you know, groundscapes using high-res 2D images. That's how, for instance, satellites make topography maps, right? And so all of a sudden you can start to create these like surfaces and textures from these images. Maybe it's not so easy. It could even just be like mapping certain colors to the city. But I think that what's really important is that you try and understand exactly how these images are working together.
那个我是清华院
Does that make sense?
王工啊，就是我们这边把那个现在上一轮的那个会议纪要已经发到咱们局里去了，然后现在我们跟局里那边是提出了几个问题嘛，这个也是书记那边提的，一个是说就是您出让的那块地，对吧？然后第二个问题呢就是
May I add something?
就是咱们不是那个道路切到了您厂的一个角嘛？对，就是等于您要给那个道路让一块地嘛。对，然后第二个问题是上次咱开会的时候，那个赵局长提说，在那个中央的那个广场地块要不要做一个这个电机博物馆？
Spencer, I guess you are the one that can mute the.
这个不知道您这边是怎么想的，然后是否要做，然后再一个做多大，然后是单体呢，还是说我们比如说您这边说做一个2000平的小馆，那这小馆比如说它是要融入到其他里边就一个室内就可以呢，还是说就是单独的一个小馆，还是说您这边就不考虑做这个东西？
Spencer, I think the topic is not related to this.
问题哈。
Wang Xin, are you talking to her?
No, she's talking about other things.
Oh, is she? I thought she was talking about our project.
No.
Wang Xin, I'm going to mute you unless you're talking about
Me too. I was like, I hope she's not translating. I spoke too much. Okay.
Sorry. Thanks, Juan Carlos. Okay.
Anyway, great job. Love the work.
So Evan, two things before we go to Henrik's comments. One is that I think that you're right, Evan, about this translation, using it to map on the city. And actually, Henrik showed us a project yesterday that was doing pretty much that, right, Henrik? Yeah, which is great. And you can talk about that more in a second. The other thing I'll say is with this the process of photogrammetry or LiDAR or any of these space to digital space translation processes, you need more than a single image. That's the challenge. So that actually provides an opportunity with Gregina's project that she was showing last time. She's not with us today, but unfortunately, but she was showing us this video where it's a transition between images. And I think that would be quite amazing to take through a photogrammetry process and see what the computer does with it. Because I think that there would be a coherent translation, because what happens with the photogrammetry process is that it looks for similarities across the images and it starts to try and stitch those together in a spatial relationship. And so that's something I would be very excited to see someone work through is this style transfer to photogrammetry process. So if there's anyone that'd like to try that, I'm totally happy to try and help you work through the photogrammetry process if I can help with that. So Henrik, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I'm also thinking about the modeling process for this specific project. So I think the biggest difference comparing to the previous one is that the previous example is more like trying to map the pattern. So I would just suggest to think of the image sampler. But for this one, I think the result is more like taking the original image pipes into some 2D surfaces, which is organic. So it reminds me that maybe for the modeling process, we can make use of similar logic instead of simply mapping on it. So one of the methods I'm thinking of is, because originally they are all pipes. So actually we can just model the lines, the curves in the Rhino model first. And then we may make use of some swarming grasshopper script, which is trying to do like thickening it, but in an organic way, and also a little bit of randomness to it. So it may give a similar result to the image on the right. So I try to send an image on the chat. So you may take a look on it. So this is a small exercise I did previously, which is trying to use some lines and trying to do some swarming along the lines and then create a mesh out of it. So maybe this is one of the methods she can have a try, instead of just doing a more typical pipe.
Yeah, Heinrich, I'm going to take a step back from that and say, let's try and interpret this image on its own terms and not try and superimpose the original two images on it. So I think that the processes you're talking about are interesting and useful, but maybe not in exactly the way that you're saying them, in that I don't think that we should take the pipes and the tubes at face value for what they are. Instead, I think that the artist should look at the final outcome image and say, what are these things? What, and choose to define them however she sees fit. For example, the horizontal orange-ish yellow line cutting through the middle, to me, that doesn't feel like a pipe or a tube at all. It feels like something different, maybe like a facade element or something like that. Same with the vertical one. That vertical one there looks to me like it's something different. And then the other thing is that we don't have to use the same perspectival relationship that we see in the very first image. We can choose to look at this in a different way. Maybe instead of us looking up, maybe we're looking down a tube or something like that, or like onto a surface. And so I just want all of the workshop participants to be as open-minded about the results and what they could be as possible, because that's where you're going to get the really novel and most interesting outputs or outcomes, I think.
Yeah,
But again,
totally agree.
your example of how to kind of produce meaningful geometry from the image is quite useful and helpful, and I'm glad that you shared that.
Or in
because,
the latest stage, probably.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's good. Juan Carlos, looks like you have some thoughts.
Yeah, I found your work very interesting. Similar comments to before, because I can see the difference. So what I appreciate, if you go back to the full image with all the outcomes, please.
Can you zoom out? Yeah.
What should I show now?
Zoom
Just-
out so we can see the whole image.
Yeah, all of them.
Okay.
Thank you. So what I found interesting is that you did another step of exploration. So you take one of the outputs and then you did a second round of style transfer. I think this is very interesting. And I found that, of course, the first two results in the top, the most interesting ones. And I'm also very curious because, as we mentioned yesterday, the other Monday, sorry, the algorithm is always surprising you, right? So this is something that I find really extremely fascinating. So comparing to the example we discussed earlier, you are speaking about source and style, right? But I think in your case, there's a sort of similarity. I don't really see the style as a style. I see the style more like a source, at least from the description. So for example, in the first image that I found interesting is like the two geometries are kind of competing, right? So both of them are creating one geometry. So maybe it could be interesting to do another experiment to zoom in or zoom out the image, the source. If you want to use that really as a texture, right? Because then the result is going into that direction. I think that will be interesting, right? So perhaps also the idea to zoom in or zoom out in the image, the source, I think this is something that is very interesting and you should do. The second line, again, is interesting because you have, actually is working quite well, and I'm quite surprised because the source actually is really working as a source and the style is really working as a style, even if the style for me is again more like a source in this case, but for a reason is working correctly. So I found it interesting, right? So my advice in general should be that maybe you, instead of that, I appreciate, because then you go to a further step, but you can see that the complexity of the image that is the output of the first two levels that is becoming the source of the third and the fourth. And you have again a sort of style that is blurry, then I think that the final result, the third and the fourth image on the right, then is too much confused, right? But it's part of the process. I think this is really interesting. So maybe before doing that, I will try to zoom in, zoom out the source in the first and the second one and take a look on what is happening. Personally, I found the first line very interesting because then you're generating this sort of spaces, and I really found it interesting. So, but anyway, very well done. I think your work is very promising.
Actually, I think the first output and the second output shows a similarity that they are in the city's context, and the tubes are playing the same role as the highways.
Yeah, I agree on this. I'm just saying that the top image on the left, for me has a big potential into being more a texture. So in this moment, the first image on the top, you can see that both geometries are in a sort of fusion, right? I would like to see what about if one of those is dominating the other. And you can do both experiments into making, just changing the scale, you know, but that's my personal curiosity. I don't know if you get my point.
I think I would like to use the first image as the facade or as the texture, but I have some difficulties in applying this in 3D model.
Let's get into that. We have a little bit of time. Do you want to explore that, and we can help you through it? This is a workshop, so feel free to kind of share with us your problems.
Okay, can you teach me how to maybe build a model like this as the first, like the first image?
Okay, well, so let's just start simply with, you said texturing, and I think that that's kind of a good place to start. And maybe people don't have a good background in this, and I don't know what people's skill levels are, but for example, if you take an object like this here, and you can apply a texture quite simply. So let's just take one of these style transfer images, maybe let's see, this one here. We can take that one, and I'll probably take it into Photoshop and get rid of some of the background. So let me pull up Photoshop, bring the image in, and should open here. Yeah. Oh, let me show my screen. Let me share my screen. I'm sorry. Share screen. Sorry about that. Okay. So sorry. So here's my 3D model. And if I'm going to texture this, I want to try and use a style transfer for a texture. So if I use this image here, let's see. Oh, can't get it. Let me just do this real quick. Okay, so we got the image here. I'm going to take, I'm going to just take and crop it real quick so that I get the meat of the texture that I want. So there we have the basic unit, right? And maybe I'll pull it in just a little bit more. Okay, there we go. So there's my texture. And one of the key things to making a good texture is using a filter called offset. And what that does is it allows you to make a tileable texture quite easily. So if we do that, we can see where the seam is. And again, this is very boring kind of utilitarian work, but I want to be able to help you guys translate these style transfer images from style transfer into model format. So here I have the stamp tool, and I can choose my stamp location, and then stamp in here a texture so that I end up with something that doesn't have a seam. So let's choose, let's see here, where can I pull from? I think I want to just pull from there. And we don't want it to feel like it's a copy, you know, so we might have to kind of manipulate things a little bit so that they don't feel copied. But again, what we want to do is we want to try and remove that seam so that when we texture this, it's kind of a seamless texture. So now that we have this, this texture, we can save it. And I'll save it as a JPEG. Okay, now we've got that image. Now we can take that image from the location here. Let me get it. Let me just find that image real quick. Oh. So now I have this folder and I've got the texture, and I can just simply take the texture and I can apply it to the material, or I can apply it to the object. And so in Rhino here, I can choose texture by material. I can make a new material. I like plastic because it has a lot of parameters. So if I take color and do custom material, custom. That gives us more choices. Here we go. Color, add a texture, and I can choose that same folder location, add texture 1, and now I have that. And now it's about scaling. So if we click on the texture, enable mirroring alternatives, that's always good. And we can, it's scaled 1:1. Let's try 5. That seems too small. 3, 4. Maybe we want to turn off mirroring. Yeah, that's better. Now we can go bigger, I think. Maybe 10. Nope. 7. And now it's just a matter of figuring out the scale and massaging that scale till it's what you want it to be. And you can apply that same thing with a bump map. And we start to get results that are kind of interesting. So that's the simplest thing of using using the style transfer as a texturing tool, and that's something more akin to what Abai was working with, our other participant. But at the same time, you can use this this texturing to start to get a lot of intricacy and detailing quite quickly, where it takes it from just simple geometry and starts to make it into something that's a little more sophisticated feeling. Let's see. Are we still there? Is everyone still there? So that's just a quick tutorial on how to start to get texturing from the style transfer into the 3D model. Again, I think some grasshopper techniques will be useful to try and create geometry quickly. That's going to be I think a really good way forward to give you complex geometries that are similar. And again, the thing is this is a translation. It's not like a one-to-one correspondence. So your output image from the style transfer process doesn't have to look exactly like your 3D model is going to look, if that makes sense. After today's live stream, we're just about done. It's 10:40. I might try to do a just an independent live stream where I take the image that I made this morning. Let me see if I can share my screen again. Later today, maybe this evening, I'll do a live stream where I try and translate this image into a 3D model, and then you can kind of watch me model and watch me use the tools. and that will be, I think, informative to you, to all of you, in the process of translating the image from the style transfer into something that's coherent as a 3D model. Is that something you guys would be interested in?
Yes, I think that is one of the most difficult part of using the AI in the design process, because what we got is always an 2D image, and how to translate into a 3D model is always challenging.
Okay, well, so then I'll do a live stream. I'll try and do a live stream at 9 o'clock tonight from my house, and I'll do a live stream, and that will be good for people like Liana, who's at NYIT in New York, people like that, where it'll be morning for them. So 9 o'clock China time, 9 o'clock PM China time, I'll do a live stream showing the translation of this style transfer image I did, or composite that I've done in Photoshop, into a 3D model. And then I'll also briefly touch on photogrammetry and how we might technically translate a photogrammetry model from, output a photogrammetry model from the style transfer process as well. Okay, it will probably be a long, boring live stream that's just kind of monotonous, but hopefully it will be useful to you guys.
Yes.
Does someone else want to? Does someone else want to share their screen results? Share results thus far.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I want to share my screen. Can I share it now?
Please, please.
Oh, yes. Yes. Can you see my screen right now?
Yeah, it's loading. Yep.
Yeah. So, actually, I put all the photos in the slide, so I will just start. My name is Xin Yi, and firstly, I picked a photo from what I took from Rome, Italy, and I choose some styles. It's just like the beginning of the trials, so I get something like this. And that are just interesting, but not that fruitful. So I just keep on trying something like this. And this one, I was trying to use the bubble to take place of all these squares, but it's not that work. So I just, and I did this one. In this one, I think that the photo it's like all the results are in the left, and the original photos are in the middle, and all the styles are in the left, are on the right. So I think the right one, the style photo is quite interesting. So I think this photo looks like a twisted Venice or something. So yeah, and these are some other trials. And this is like some complex images. And later on, I think of something interesting that is actually what I am doing with my friends is we're now creating a game on Unity 3D, and that is based on a real village. So after I think of that, I was trying to use the traditional village as the original photo, and I want to change the style of that and see what I can get from it. And these are some of the things I get at first. That's not that that fruitful. And after that, I tried something like this. I think that is what I want to focus on and further develop. And so I get these 4 photos, and I choose 3 of my favorite. That is this one, and this one, and this one. So yeah, I was trying to put the photo in the Rhino, but I was still working on it. So that is what I get right now.
Great. I think your results are wonderful.
Oh, it's like, but I see what you have done in the Photoshop, and I can see how you put every image together and you have different layers, like in the upper layer there are some bottoms, and later there are something different. So but I think all my image, like they look like they're like average distributed everywhere, so I can't, you know, form a story or something interesting like you, and you can add some people in the vacant place, and that makes it look like a whole story, and that is quite interesting. Yeah, but I can just get these things. So do you have some suggestions?
Yeah, for sure. So I would go back to your original images, because I think the thing is that you have to be opportunistic. You have to find opportunities where they are. So go to some of your first ones, the early ones you did.
Early ones like this?
Yeah, try. So yeah, okay, go through slowly. Yep. Yeah,
okay. And these are just some original trials. And some of them just change the colors of the original image, but it doesn't form anything that's you know, fruitful. So I just skip them quickly. And
okay,
this
so
one,
this one, yeah, I think this one is interesting and it has potential. And the thing is that none of these images have scale to them per se. And so you as the designer get to assign a scale. That's your opportunity. And so then you have to start thinking to yourself, what is the scale that I want to apply this to? And so, for example, some of your later images where you're applying the image on the far right to the whole village, then you can say, is this earlier image maybe like a detail that can be applied to the later image?
oh, yeah, so I can you know, do it again and again, and to make the output as the original one and do it again, right?
Right, and we saw that earlier with the last student. She was able to take some original
I see that.
take the output and reapply it. But what I'm saying is a little different. I think what she did is really compelling, and I think that's a good path forward for you. But I also think that what I'm saying is that you can take images from your whole selection and start to think about them at different scales, and let these different images inform different scales of the model. Meaning that the one image is not going to give you a full resolution understanding of what the space will be like. But if you can take different style transfer images and start to think about them as maybe like a zoomed in detail, or like a zoomed out overall view, or a medium scale view, just like we do with an architectural drawing set, where it's like we start with a site plan, and then we zoom in on a floor plan, and then we zoom in on, say, a wall section or a wall detail, and then we zoom in even more specific on like a window detail, for example. And so you can do the same thing with the style transfer process, where you can say, you know, what are the opportunities for this particular style transfer image to fit into a greater narrative that I'm trying to construct?
Yeah, actually, I have a question for you. Is that in your Photoshop process, I see you make that big orange thing in the left, and that looks like a bigger bottom compared to other things floating in the sky. So did you like actually have a image in your mind before you do that? It's like you wanted to do that or something?
No, I let the process help me to determine what the outcome would be. And I tried not to be predisposed to trying to create something that was similar to the Arcogram image, the original Arcogram image. The Arcogram image is a kind of a starting place, and it's not somewhere that I want to stay or to linger at. I want to move from the Arcogram image to a completely new, a new environment. And
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do, and I think that your village is a great similar opportunity, where you're using it as a jumping off point, and from the village, where does that take you? And then you as the designer get to determine how narrow or how wide your perspective is going to be in terms of what the opportunities are. For example, if you're looking to have this thing be built, then you would want to constrain your potential perspective on what is possible or what the outcomes could be. But if this is more of like a visioning exercise for you, then you can allow this to be very wide in terms of what it is. And I think that's where the strength of this process is in the ability for us to cast a wide net and say what is possible. And then after we've gotten out of the way what is possible, then we can start to narrow down and choose what we want to be kind of substantiated into reality at some point.
Yeah, I see. So can I you mean that I can try some other like elements or something that can be composed with this one and think of the scale of the village or something like that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have
Okay,
more
thank
images?
you.
It looks like you have more at the bottom. We didn't see those at the bottom.
Yes.
At the very bottom.
Very bottom, like this one. It's like
Very, very, very bottom. Very bottom. The last image is at the bottom.
last image in the bottom,
All the way down. All the way down.
all the way down. Like, what's the number of that? Can you see that?
Yeah, it's number 18, 19, 20 maybe.
Okay, and that is actually
Oh,
the
those are
output of the village.
Oh, yeah, those are the outputs. Okay, yeah. Okay, we did see those. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other
okay.
comments? Juan Carlos, Evan, Henrik, Wang Qin, anybody?
Yes, I have actually some thought after looking at the images. I think there is a very interesting trial, which is I found that your content image and the texture sometimes they are like in opposite character in terms of the in and out. So for example, at the bottom row of the current page, the image you chose is an exterior view, but you are trying to map an interior view into it. And then the outcome is actually kind of like a in between in and out. I think that is very interesting. So yeah, so Spencer suggested that you may think of them at different scale. So I think you may also add one more layer, which is thinking some images are showing the interior space, and some of them are, for example, the twisted Venice is more like a exterior structure.
Oh.
Yes, so maybe there's some opportunity of thinking them at different spaces, even the original image is at the same perspective.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Hey, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting that your the last image is fine. Yeah, the last one. The one with the last one, the one with Chinese villages under the dome. I think page 17.
17, yeah.
Or let's say even we start from this one. This one, the dome. Yeah, this is for example, if we take a look. Oh. Okay. This is 16. Okay, 16. Okay. I think it's very, let's say, a bold idea to interact two different scales into one. For example, one is a planning scale, right? And one is an installation scale.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, so I think it's a bold idea just to try, yeah, just to see what can come out of it. And another way, I guess you can guessing what I'm pointing out is another way to do it probably is to merging two similar scales, but with very different base-driven structures, and that might be more let's say practical, because I'm a practice architect. So when I look at these experiments, I'm very much thinking about how to quickly use it into real projects. So what I want to point out is the example you are showing that's quite different from before is both the source and the pattern, or no, the style, they have scales.
Yeah.
And that's quite obvious, and that's something special from your project. Then the question is, maybe be more clear and more specific with the scale and
Yes,
choosing the
okay.
image. Yeah.
Yeah. I think when yeah, please.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay. I think when I using the village, you know, like merging two different scales together, the village image, it looks like actually like the pattern doesn't look like actually the layout of the village. I mean, the output, in the output image, the village doesn't look like actually like a village. It's look like more like a pattern. Do I make myself clear? It's like it doesn't need to be a village itself. Yeah.
So what scale do you see that top image, the top left image? What scale is that to you? Does it have a scale? Is it
No,
is it scaleless?
not yet.
It's scaleless now, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Is it spatial? Does it have, to you, does it have an element of the spatial relation? Is it spatial or is it two-dimensional in your eyes?
Oh, it's special. Yeah, it's special,
but
but doesn't have
spatial,
an
but not
exact scale.
Yeah. And do you see opportunities for it to have scale? Like where do you see this? What kind of scale do you see it having?
I think it's I'm not sure. It's maybe something in between the two image that I put in. It's like something in between, but I'm not sure where it's you know, goes.
Well, here's another thing is that you can always, and this is cliche, but you can always turn the image upside down, right?
Oh yeah. Yes.
So like if you turn that image upside down, does this become, what does it become? Or turn it sideways? And just
yeah, I will try, maybe I will try that.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Juan Carlos?
Yeah, just a few comments. I think it's very impressive, your work. I quite like how you are exploring and many experiments you are doing. I think this last discussion is really pointing out what you now need to understand better, that is the scale. And perhaps, again, for me, the framing of the source image is very important. So, for example, in this one, the branch of the tree is creating like a sort of interference. Maybe something, I mean, it's a potential, right? But I would like to make sure that it's something that you are looking for, and it's just not just because you take an image and just drop it there. So sometimes the framing of the image, for example, if I was doing this exercise, I will just maybe reduce the frame of the image and just keep the roof, right, of the village.
Oh yeah, so just remove the trees.
Yeah, and
another way to, Juan Carlos, another way to do it is to do a content-aware fill in Photoshop and get rid of that tree branch. Yeah, because this is sort of noise, you know, it's an interference that again could be something that is interesting because it's creating, then you see in the final result that is the black area, right, is of course coming from that one. Maybe something you are looking for, or maybe not. It's on you, but I just want you to be aware about the potential of the process, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
You go please to the last, to the 2021 slide. Yeah. I think this is really promising as well, right? Here I can see a scale very clearly.
Yes.
So perhaps that could be helpful.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Looking forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the exciting moment where it's a kind of a pivotal point where it's like, what do we take from what we've done and how do we translate that into an environment? And that very much is dependent upon our skill level. Each one of us is at a different skill level and has different tools under our belt. Hopefully the workshop I do, or the live stream I do tonight, will help kind of bring people up to speed on some of the tools that I feel comfortable with, and it can be useful to everyone. Many of you are probably very capable in these tools, and you can be very facile about translating the model into, or the image into the model. But we'll see. This is going to be exciting to see. Again, I just want to point out that we have that there will be an exhibition of this work both in Shanghai at Tongji University as well as online. So I'd like you to take this seriously and put in the time and effort necessary to make sure that you have work you're proud of and that the workshop itself can be proud of. And so yeah, please take it seriously so that we can have good work that comes out of this. So any other comments from anyone? Anything that anyone would like to add? Or do we have one last student that would like to share? We have about 30 minutes left before we need to get off, but we do have that time. So if you'd like to use it, we'd love to see one more student's work, if you like. How about Domeng Shu, DUMENGXUE, Domeng Shu? Would you like to share some work?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Should I show my screen now?
Please do, yes.
Oh, can you see that?
Yes.
Oh, I find some images on the Pinterest, and I put it in this deep art and combine them to the these are the output images. I try a lot, and this is the first one, and I like to it's in the like a snow mountain, or it's like a texture maybe, and combine the architecture. And you can also see this maybe it's located in the North Pole, and I'd like to build it in the glacier. And some of them, the images don't have the scales. I think maybe this one and this one, and this one, and others also have the scales you can see in this place. I don't know what should I do. Maybe I want to I just want to build an architecture in the cold and the freezing area, like the North Pole and other the north of the Canadian maybe. And I use this this is the like my style, my image style, and this is what I want the architecture like.
Let me ask you a question. Are you thinking possibly within the realm of the Harbin winter city that they build out of ice? Is that the kind of context in which you're thinking about designing for?
Yes, maybe in the Harbin, but what I'm looking for is in the maybe very cold, maybe it's like the north of the Canadian, is in the North Pole, something like there.
I see. Well,
Yes.
every year in Harbin they have an ice sculpture festival, and they build hotels completely out of ice. They have this whole city that pops up in the middle of the tundra that's built out of ice. And so that's what I was asking. Was this in that kind of context? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, I
or
will
thinking of?
try to find something in there in Harbin.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Chinese winter ice sculpture festival. You'll find a lot of interesting things. And I maybe this is like a fake client for you. Maybe you are set yourself up as having this framework of a client who wants you to design them something for the Harbin sculpture ice sculpture festival, and then this can be. Then you can start to contextualize the whole exercise in terms of that. And if you're doing it from that perspective, I think that might be useful to you, especially if you're interested in the snow or ice or cold weather climate kind of spaces. That might help you.
Okay, thank you. Oh,
okay. So
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Please. I have a question. Is that I saw the previous students. They have a lot of the works all about the international, and maybe the some of them are I think global warming or the city density. It's like city problems they are working to, but for my this work, I don't have some something like that, something like the concepts or problems of the cities or the world.
Right. So the architecture studio that I ran last semester and that I showcased on Monday, there was a lot of work to kind of precursor work. It was research based to help them form a direction, to help them as background information as they went into the style transfer process. And we don't have the luxury of having the time to set that up. But I think that you already have expressed an initial interest of this ice landscape. And so I would kind of exploit that as much as you can and just take a quick deep dive. Don't get carried away, but just trying to understand the perspective from which you're coming. And that is that you have this climactic premise that's a basis for your work. And with that climactic premise comes some certain logics and underpinned frameworks and those sorts of things that you can work with to help you work through the process. And again, just like the last student, you don't have to think about these images as being all the same scale, but you can think about them in terms of how can they be relational to each other. And, can one be more of a holistic view and another one be more of a detailed view, or different aspects being expressed in different images. And then you can take from those almost like a material palette or a mood board or something like that. And then pull from those to create your own
Yes, thank you. I got that.
So let me have any that related to one or two that you felt.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I think I cut out. I said, I think you had one or two that you felt were quite interesting. Can you go back to those and let's look at those more closely.
Oh, okay. Which one?
Whichever ones you felt like spoke to you the most. Which ones were the ones that you found to be most interesting?
I think is this one. This one.
Okay, click on it.
And
click on the image. Okay. Click on one. Click on one.
Oh, this one.
There you go. Okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see. Yeah. So to me, I see a very clear path forward in terms of a scale and a greater context, but it's up to you to translate it in a way that you see as the designer.
I think this one don't have the scales, but for this picture, we can see it's like unities, a lot of unities in here, and they made the whole cities. Maybe it's the whole cities.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah. For me, if I were to kind of express what I see in this image and how it translates, I see this, there's a bridge on the left and a bridge on the right. And I see those as kind of like raised streets that are up above. And then I see some kind of other city elements in the background, and maybe some water features as well, or maybe translation from the water to the sky, where the horizon is kind of connected by the water. The water is connected to the sky in the horizon. That's kind of the scale that I see. So I see like the pathway on the left being maybe like a 2-lane or a 4-lane street or road. That's the scale that I see personally.
Here, maybe 2 or 3 streets in there.
Yep.
Okay.
And so the nice thing about that is if you place a scale to it, then you can immediately start to understand what the details, what their role is and how they operate. And so the filigree or the structure below, we start to understand that as kind of the scaffolding of sorts.
Yeah.
And see, that's just how I see the image. Now that I'm looking at it again, I just saw the image in a different way, where it's these 2 leaning towers, and it's much more oblique or flat image, not so perspectival. So there's a lot of, and there's a street at the bottom that's white that goes kind of through those 2 towers.
Oh, combine these 2 images. It's like a 2 towers here, and it's the street.
No, sorry. My brain shifted and I'm now seeing the image in a new way. And so if you look at the image on the left there, I'm seeing 2 towers kind of leaning together, and then I'm seeing a road go straight through them in perspective.
Okay, I understand.
On the left, move your mouse to the left.
Yes.
Yeah, down. Yeah, right where your mouse is. I see that as kind of a perspectival road going through these 2 towers. Like a perspectival road. Those are 2 towers. Like 2 towers leaning on each other.
Where are the towers?
I'm telling you that I'm seeing different ways of viewing the image. So the first way was these 2 streets that are kind of converging in the distance. But then this other way of looking at it, your mouse is right at the top of the 2 towers. They're kind of leaning on each other, right? And then there's a kind of a road that goes through the 2 towers.
Okay.
So I'm just saying there's a lot of ways you can look at these images, and you as the designer have to be the one to interpret them how you will.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so does anyone, do you have any more questions? Does anyone else want to pipe in about her work, or should we just close? Should we just close now?
Just a brief comment. I think you are doing very well, but I found a small difference among your work and the other students. Because your images are more homogeneous. So then this is more like a fusion, So If you have, I mean, this is very promising. I think the advice that Spencer was giving to you is really good. So you can go forward with for it, or if you still have a little bit of time to make some experiments, maybe I will try to have images that are a little bit more bold. You know what I mean? A little bit more stronger in terms of geometries, or just to make a try, you know, and perhaps you will find something very interesting. But I appreciate also that you are already thinking on a topic, and this is really, really, really good. You know, like you're not just working with images, but you are like kind of making a sort of research and making it part of a thinking process that is very much appreciated, right? So I don't know, just to mention, and I think you can do a little bit more of experiments, and perhaps you will discover something interesting.
Okay, I will try that later.
Yeah, make a try. Have
Yes,
fun.
thank you.
Right?
Yes.
That's the purpose of the workshop, to have fun.
Juan Carlos, you just made me think of something. You know, when you go to a glacier, there's the white on top, but when you go inside, there's a lot more color, a lot more contrast. There's, you know, remind me your name here. What is your name? I can't see your name.
Mengxue.
Mengxue. Yeah. So you need to think about your whole. If you're interested in this this cold weather environment, you need to think about the whole environment, not just the one that you would perceive on the surface, but there are many aspects to a cold weather environment, if that's your focus.
Yes, I know.
Like, what about underwater, or what about in the sky, or there's so many different. What about scales? What if you change scales and look at what a water molecule does when it crystallizes? You know, there's so many different scales to look at in terms of cold weather climate.
Yeah, maybe under the water, maybe it's like a floating city. The scales maybe smaller than that.
Yeah, and then also underneath the glacier, as I mentioned, so many different places you can think about. What about cold weather habitation? You know, what does that look like indigenously?
Habitation.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Like igloos or something else. Igloo. Yeah, there we go.
What's that mean?
Igloo. It's an Eskimo way of living.
Oh yeah. It's like it's like a ball, ice ball.
Yeah, an ice ball.
In a way, yes.
Ice balls for living in. Yeah.
I find a picture like that.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's igloo.
But I think this picture not combined very well.
Yeah. So I think maybe reversing them. Try reversing them, flipping the.
Okay. I will try. I will try that.
Yeah. Juan Carlos, Wangxin, Henrik, Evan, really, really grateful for your time today and your participation. I think that everyone has benefited from your perspectives, your comments, your feedback, your expertise, and I know that the students are very grateful for your help with this. Let's do it again Friday if you can. If you're able, it'd be wonderful. And Henrik, if you can be on tonight at 9, I think it would be nice for you and I to have a conversation. Maybe you can share some of your grasshopper techniques, and I'll share some of mine, and we can have a little fun.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Okay, same place. We'll do it at the same live stream and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much. Feel free to keep the conversation going in the Discord channel, And I'll see whoever would like to join us tonight at 9 p.m. Thanks.
Thanks to you, Spencer, and thanks to all the students. And
yeah, Juan Carlos, I'm really grateful that we're able to have this dialogue, because I think it really pushes our process as, you know, instructors or people who are kind of sharing this information with other people further. So it's really valuable for me to kind of get your feedback and have this conversation.
yeah,
So thank you.
Same for me, because of course we have kind of different perspectives, but this is actually what I was looking for. So to compare our ideas, and I think really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very
I'll see
much as well.
whoever would like to at 9 tonight. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.